Hello, this is Alex Alderman from the Center for Innovative Pedagogy at Kenyon College, and this is going to be a quick primer on planning group work, both what you need to think about and some tools that are available for doing it. When you're looking for some tools for thinking about organizing group projects, you need to think, well, what are the things that are going to actually make a project successful? So some of the things include clear expectations from stakeholders, define tasks and deadlines for team members, communication between team members on task progress, sharing work in progress with team members, and an easy review of completion and performance from the top. So what I put in here, so the idea is if you have some kind of, say like dates, for when things need to be completed, or the parameters for how those things need to be completed, what the standards are, putting that in a central place where it can be seen and referred to quickly is important. Having some kind of organization of tasks, whether that's something established by you or by members of the team. Having that kind of communication, just so that they can update each other with where things are. Some kind of actual representation of the work in progress, which could be files, or even representations, in some case images, screenshots, kinds of things, and some way for you to rapidly review what's going on. So having an interface that allows you to do that is helpful. So there are a lot of practical ways of approaching these issues that are used often in the business world that don't involve technology at all, one of which is called a Scrum board, which is what you see here. So Scrum is a kind of project management system which is basically self-managed. So here you have various kinds of projects that are going on, and progress on those projects is indicated by all these little sticky notes or individual tasks, or sometimes referred to as stories. And the different colors represent different projects, and where they are in the cycle is represented in these three blocks: the backlog, WIP, which is work in progress, and stuff that's done. So that rapidly shows you where things are, and not just as a whole, but individually, small amounts of each little element of the project. Here you can see a larger scale version of this kind of Scrum board, and such that you actually need to have different rows established for what are called different stories here. And colors here can be used to indicate, because the colors are being used, are not being used to indicate the actual different projects that these rows are. They can here be used to indicate levels of difficulty or types of tasks for, so that people can vary what they're doing. But this is another kind of variation on how that works. Now, there has been some kinds of effort to also represent dependencies in workflows and systems using what's called Gantt charts. So this is an example of a Gantt chart, which is like sometimes you can make these practically, but these are usually made in some kind of software. But it's a particular kind of representation of how work needs to progress. So that the idea is that you show like the stages of the project are laid out, and where it is that each stage of the project depends on some other kind of work. And this then allows, like here, how various task assignments are also shown, and the completion of different elements in this system. So that's another way of representing progress on these works. One online tool that can be used for communicating information about projects directly is just Moodle forums, especially the announcements forum, or having a special forum for projects. This then can be used to centrally communicate information and maybe get feedback from students about what's going on. But that's one simple structure for taking care of that. Another free tool that's available is something called Trello, which is sort of similar to a virtual corkboard or virtual whiteboard, where people can post first off, you can organize projects and arrange teams on different projects. And then within each project, either you or the team members can update with tasks and then indicate how far along each task is to be completed. So that's another free tool which some people use. Another way to divide these work up online in a free way is using Google Sheets. So this is something I've done before when working in a team. So you can divide up tasks into or projects into columns like this, and then lay out individual tasks in the rows, and then use coloring of these different segments to indicate, say, either the level of completion or who is assigned to what. So that's another free system that I've used before for tracking work. Another way that's free to coordinate with people in a single project is just using Google Meets. So that's another way for teams to have communication. But what I wanted to talk about today was particularly Slack, which is an online workspace which combines lots of these different functions. So there's direct messaging, which is something you have in lots of different software, but that's something that students can use for talking to each other on a project. Also, faculty can use it to communicate with individual students about their progress, so give them some kind of feedback. It's also a place where you can have file and link sharing in order to share work in progress. And there are channels, which is the kind of central feature of Slack, which are basically like long-term group chats. And these are places where, first off, the faculty member can put in information about the project generally, communicate their expectations through the general channel, and then you can set up individual channels where students can divide up their tasks and give progress on where they are as a group. And then those can be arranged where it's a pretty simple interface for you to go in and just look through the different channels and see, well, what are people actually doing? And you can communicate your expectations about what you want to see there back in that general channel. So it's a good system that combines a lot of these helpful features for group projects in one very simple interface. And it's very popular in the software development world and the business world, and it's increasingly popular at Kenyon for these kinds of group projects. So what are the advantages of the Slack? You can have project assignments and announcements all in one place, rather than having them divided up between Moodle and various other tools or different sections of Moodle. It's easy to add contributors and reviewers from outside of Kenyon, whereas if you're trying to do that in Moodle, or even sometimes on our Google products, there are gateways there that you have to go through in order to get outside contributors involved. Each project has its own easily accessible channel, so it's a good way of sorting through this information. And it allows for easier review of communication within project groups by you. There are limitations, though. So first off, you need to add students manually. So you need to invite them all into the Slack workspace. And they need to accept and they need to show up. There are limitations on file uploads. A way of getting around that is just by sharing links to Google Drive. It's important to be mindful of privacy issues, especially with grades. So this is not one of the reasons why people use learning management systems like Moodle is that it's a very safe and closed space. So that way you don't have outside people coming in, and you also have a control of information, how it's being shared. So Slack, to some extent, sharing grades in Slack is probably not a secure form of communication, especially if you're not very familiar with it. One of the problems anytime you have multiple features, especially multiple ways to communicate with people, make sure that you and students both understand how it is that you want them to communicate with you, because you don't want them sending you direct messages if you're not checking your direct messages, or posting things in the group forum if you're not regularly checking up the individual group channels. But then I think one of the biggest drawbacks is that Slack is not one unified system like our Moodle page, it is set up in a way that each Slack workspace is totally separate from every other Slack workspace. So if you're going to have one class with a bunch of projects, set that up as one workspace for the entire class, because if you set it up for a workspace for each project, now you have to re-invite every student every time. And again, that's a bit of an awkward process. But it is, on the whole, a very useful piece of technology, and I'm happy to help people find out how to use it.